Hey guys, 7th here. This is an unplanned video, so there's not going to be any game footage. I wasn't expecting or planning to make this video today, but I just found out last night that I got tagged by Heavy Metal Gamer in a recent video of his concerning nostalgic video games. And he asked me to do a video of my top 5 nostalgic video games. And I didn't realize this. Why? Because YouTube is fucked up, that's why. Because YouTube is just not letting... No, I'm lying. It's because I wasn't subbed to him. I thought I was, but I wasn't. 7's fucked up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Heavy Metal Gamer. I apologize. That video's 3 weeks old. I had no idea until he actually sent it to me in a tweet saying, hey, you were tagged. I'm sorry, I thought that I was subbed to you, but I wasn't. Please forgive me. You guys know that I don't do things the way everybody else does, so I'm not going to do 5 games. I'm going to do 7 nostalgic video games. And they're not necessarily going to be the top 7, they're just 7 that comes to mind. And because I have so much shit to choose from, whether it be arcade, NES, SNES, all this different stuff, I got so much shit I don't know what to do with it all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do 7 nostalgic NES games. Games that are nostalgic to me on the NES in no particular given order. Number 7, Strider. I really love this game. First time I ever played it was at my friend Will's house. Now, Will, he always got the newest games before anybody else did. So a lot of my first time experiences with NES games were with this kid, Will. So I went over to his house and I started playing this game. And it's nothing like the arcade version. It's nothing like the Genesis version. It's almost like a Metroidvania, really, where you're having to go from map to map. You have to find stuff that allows you to go and get into other parts of the other maps that you couldn't get into, like anti-gravity boots and shit like that, mixed with some side-scrolling platforming and swordplay action. I really like this game a lot. I don't hear many people talking about it in the retro community, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because people really love the Genesis version, so this one just gets kind of pushed along to the wayside, but I think it's a really great NES game, and if you haven't played it, you should really pick it up. Number 6 is Willow, based on the late 80s movie that was produced by George Lucas, directed by Ron Howard. Mine is not in the best of condition, as you can see. It's got some stickiness on the front here and some movie rental store bullshit on the back. So I am looking for an upgrade for this. It's not that hard of a cart to find, but yeah. Anyway, this is a fantastic little Zelda clone that follows the general story of the movie. And the music is great, the graphics are fantastic for the time and for the system that they were on. And I just really dig this game. I played it all the way through, I beat the last boss, beat the game years and years and years and years ago. And if you like Zelda games, if you like those action adventure RPGs in that vein, you really need to pick this one up. It's a fantastic little title, and it's not that expensive. Number 5 is Super Dodgeball. Now, I know I've already done a review on this, but whenever I went to the rental store and couldn't find anything new, this was the game I would take home. And I didn't even own my own copy till towards the end of the NES's lifespan, because it was just one that, for whatever reason, was always available at the rental store, and so I never had to buy it. But eventually I did pick it up, and of course it was lost in the yard sale, but I eventually got it back, and I'm never getting rid of it. It's a fantastic game, and it's especially good for having friends over and playing one-on-one, because it's funny as hell. It's a fantastic game, great controls, funny graphics. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a great game. Number 4 is the original Ninja Gaiden. I had a very strong love-hate relationship with this game. It came highly recommended from several friends of mine at school, and so I cut a lot of grass to get the $50 I needed to buy this game. And so on that fateful day when I finally had the money, I drove out to, well, I didn't drive, my parents drove me, out to the Walmart, and I picked up my very own copy of Ninja Gaiden. Took it home, and proceeded to slowly but surely learn the systems, learn the levels, learn the patterns. It took me an entire year to master this game. It's like almost to the day, a year after I bought it, I finally sat down and said, I'm not going to turn this off until I beat the boss. And I went through it, and I beat the last boss, only to find out that there was another form after that, only to find out there was another form after that, but I sat there and I didn't stop until I beat it. Took me a whole damn year, but I beat it. Then within like 2 days of that happening, Ninja Gaiden 2 came out. I went out and bought Ninja Gaiden 2, I took it home, I beat it the first time I played it. All because I'd spent so much time playing this. It's one of the tougher NES platformers out there, action platformers, but you know what? It's all about speed and pattern recognition. If you've got decent hand-eye coordination and you just keep moving forward, there's a couple of parts where you do have to stop just to get the timing right, but for the most part, the trick to it is keep moving and learn your boss patterns. That's all you need to win in this game. It's a fantastic title. It's one of the best on the NES. I like this one a lot. Number 3 is Rygar. Yes, mine has a name written on it. Lewis. This was originally Lewis's copy of Rygar. I love Rygar. It's nothing like the arcade game, really, aside from a general graphic similarity. And it's one of the first NES games that I ever actually beat. Back before I had my own NES, my cousin came over to the house and he brought all of his games that he had for the NES. At that time, I was still on like his hand-me-down, so I still had, you know, my Atari 2600, which I actually got for Christmas. That one wasn't a hand-me-down, and his old ColecoVision and whatnot. And he came over and he brought it, and I'd only seen commercials about it at that point. I hadn't even played it at a store. And he had several games. He didn't have Zelda, but he had Super Mario Brothers. He had Ghosts and Goblins. He had Duck Hunt with the light gun, and he had something else that I can't remember, and he had this one. And what I really liked about it was the kind of open adventure gameplay of it. In a lot of ways, before Metroidvania existed, this was a sort of a Metroidvania style game, because you have to go to defeat this boss and that gives you a particular weapon. Then you have to go here and you got to get the grappling hook to get to this certain spot that you couldn't get to before. It's the same kind of thing. The downside is there is no password system and there's no battery save. Every time you play this, you have to sit down and play it all the way through. Not if you have a Retron 5, but all the way through. There are a few tricks to it. It has a leveling up system where you can increase your life bar and what have you, and your weapon strength based on how many enemies you kill. You have these little stars that every now and again your enemies will drop these stars. You collect so many of those and you level up. But for the most part, it's a really fun game, and it's got some really cool music in it. It's weird because the music doesn't have any percussions in it. It almost all sounds like it's coming out of an organ. You know? Very Castlevania-like, really, with some of its music. In fact, one of the sound clips from this, when you go in and meet these Buddha-looking gurus that give you advice and tell you what to do and whatnot, the music that plays when you go into those little temples sounds like the music that plays at the beginning of, well, what is it? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, when the hand comes up, and that dun, 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 that comes from this. They stole it out of this game. Why, I don't know. But anyway, if you've never played this, you really need to pick it up. The arcade game's good, but this is better. There was also a reimagining of Rygar that came out for the PS2 that was then later remastered and re-released on the Wii with motion controls and slightly different graphics and some new levels. I think it had new levels. I want to say it had new levels. Anyway, get this one. It's really, really good. It's one of my all-time favorite NES titles. Number 2 is Mega Man 2. You should have seen this one coming because I really love this game. It's got the best music tracks of any NES card out there. Of all NES music, most of my favorite music on NES comes from this one game. It's fantastic. It's the perfect Mega Man game from the 8-bit era. You know, some people talk about 3, some people talk about 5. This one's my favorite. I have all of them, but which ones am I missing? I'm missing 4 and 5. I have all of them but 4 and 5. I beat all 6, but that was way back in the day when I owned them all. But this one was always my favorite out of the bunch. I don't know why. It's just, there's something about this particular one. It's not really something that you can put into words. It's just the perfect mix of just the right music, just the right graphics, just the right weapons, and just the right bosses. It's, in my mind, just about as close to a damn perfect NES game as it gets. And of course, number 1, I know a lot of people would think it'd be Mario, but no, it's Zelda. It's Zelda. Because I had already beaten Super Mario Brothers before I ever owned an NES. I beat it on my cousin's Nintendo when he brought it over. So by the time I had my own, I was already kind of burnt out on the first Mario Brothers, and the second Mario Brothers hadn't come out yet. But I had this. This was one of the first NES games that I picked up, and I loved it to death. I had a friend named Chad who loaned me a bunch of his games when I first got my NES because I didn't have a whole lot to play on it. And one of the things he loaned me was a book that had the maps to this game. And so I had a little bit of an advantage because I had a map that I could go by, and it still took me 2.5 weeks to beat this. And I loved every second of it. It was fantastic. It made me think of when I first played Adventure on the Atari 2600 and what it felt like to find new things and find hidden rooms and all that. And of course, years before the Legend of Zelda did it, you had Raiders of the Lost Ark on the 2600 where you could find hidden rooms with explosives and use different items to get into further parts of the map, etc., etc., etc. But of course, this is the game that really, as far as consoles go, perfected that style of gameplay. It's the quintessential action adventure RPG, and I love it to death. I don't know, I couldn't tell you how many times I've played through it. It's just addicting as hell, and I'll never get enough of it. There's always going to be a day here and there where I sit down and just want to play me some old school Zelda. Not Zelda 2, but this Zelda. And with that, that's 7 nostalgic games for Heavy Metal Gamer. Now I'm supposed to pass this on. I'm supposed to tag somebody else to make one of these. The problem being is that a lot of the guys in the retro gaming community have already done a top 5 nostalgic games or top 5 favorite NES games or what have you. But just in case I'm wrong about that and there's some that haven't, I would like to tag Wood from Beat 'em Ups. I would like to tag 8-Bit Eric, and let's see who else. Pro Jared. Let's see what Pro Jared's top 5 nostalgic games are. New, smaller channel, well, not new, but smaller channel out there, Bad Graphics Gamers. I'm going to be talking more about Bad Graphics Gamers here in a few days, but yeah, I'd like to see what their top 5 favorite nostalgic games are. Anyway, that was 7 nostalgic NES games. This is 7th.